Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy. Hey, friends! Welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Jamie.
Today we're taking a break from talking about murder. I know.
What?
I know. Our last episode was a tough one to get through about Timothy Ferguson and fucking twat faced Shonda Vander Ark, which, side note, kudos to you again for researching that and spending a lot of headspace there and telling a really gruesome story in a very elegant and empathetic way. So good job.
Thank you. That was a tough one. I appreciate that. Thank you.
The case we're covering today is another tough one, but in a different way.
Okay.
But before we get into that,
I'm not going to give too many details on this, but we got the nicest email from a listener named Melissa, who
mm,
I'm not going to say how she's connected or to which case, but she knew one of the victims in one of the cases that we covered. And she sent just the nicest, most complimentary, heartfelt email, just saying that she's listening and enjoying it. And I'm not going to go into much more than that, but just wanted to say thank you so much to Melissa. And we really appreciate you listening.
Melissa, you took time to write us an email about your experiences and your thoughts, and you really motivated us. I mean, we were motivated anyway, just fundamentally and intrinsically to give victims a voice. But the fact that we did right by you, it just was a real shot in the arm. And so we just wanted to say thank you, first of all, for just taking the time to sit down and share with us. And so thank you, Melissa. So we're talking about the prolific Philadelphia, Pennsylvania rapist, Jeffrey Marsalis.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And this might likely be very frustrating and maddening for many.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm already not thrilled.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking quite in depth about sexual assault and rape.
Okay.
So if this one hits a bit too close home for you, if you're listening, we completely understand if you choose to skip this episode.
Right.
The women we'll be giving a voice to today are intelligent, strong, courageous women. They're career oriented, independent, self reliant, all of these good things. I mean, they are strong women and they trust their ability to appropriately judge the character of others. And yet, they were the unsuspecting victims of sexual assault.
Mm,
So, we're going to talk about them today. Many names have been changed to protect the innocent,
okay.
but we're going to talk about them today. So, on that note, if you've got it, drink it. Side note, before we clink, I am drinking a different bourbon today.
What is it?
It's Jefferson's Ocean. We're not sponsored, by the way,
But we could be.
but it could be. Um, they age their bourbon at sea. Uh huh.
What?
They age their bourbon at sea. So it's never sitting, it's always back. You know what I mean?
That
And
is
she
fantastic.
is so smooth.
And fucking smart.
On that note, cheers.
Clink.
Clink. Mm. So let's level set on Jeffrey Marsalis. In short, he's a coward and a predator. Back in the early 2000s, he used the popular online dating site Match.com
Oh,
to find his
awesome.
prey. I know. His profile shared that he was a doctor in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. I love the look on your face. I wish our listeners could see the look on your face because you're like, immediately, I was like, he's a doctor in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You're like, no, he's not.
Fuck that guy.
So his profile shared that he was a doctor in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. He was working through his residency by participating in a special program for special elite doctors
Oh, fuck off.
for 3 area hospitals, primarily in the emergency room department, because that's the most exciting.
Mm.
He was a model when he was a teen, a gifted athlete, and a former EMT.
Okay. So too
Mhm.
good to be fucking true.
His many profile photos showed a good-looking, clean-cut guy, and these photos really put the stamp on what seemed to be quite the remarkable background in life.
Okay.
Mhm. But like most things on the internet, Marsalis was a big fucking gigantic lie. I
Cool.
know. Also, his last name makes me think of food, which is really fucking annoying because I love food. And Marsalis is a total dick, total cock wrinkle.
He is a cock wrinkle.
According to an ABC News article published in July 2009, Marsalis wrote in his Match.com profile, quote, I have to say that I am highly driven, and I am looking for that special someone that has the same qualities. I'm also looking for a woman to be a leader and take the initiative and make things happen for herself and not blaming others for incidentals that might happen along the way during the pathway of life. If you want to be my co pilot on the magic carpet ride, it's carry on only. That means no stop signs, no stop lights, and throttle up.
Wow. Did you say strop lights?
Did I say strop lights?
He's gross.
So the first victim of Marsalis's that we'll meet, her name is Jessica Rovell. That's her allegedly real name.
Okay.
Everyone else in this story has a pseudonym to protect their identities. She's a dynamo of a woman. Okay. So right now, at least as of 2009, she was working as an attorney in Washington, D.C.
Oh, damn.
She was also a naval reservist
Shit.
and a former beauty queen.
Wow. So
She's
she
gorgeous.
actually had
She's
it
the
all.
dynamo. She's a dynamo. And so obviously she was quite the catch. And she was very picky about the men she dated, right? She had high standards, high expectations. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
And at the time she met Marsalis, she was in law school in Philadelphia. He piqued her interest. I mean, with a profile like that, how could you not?
Right.
According to his online dating profile and photos, he seemed just like the type of high caliber guy she was going for. She's like, oh shit, he's a doctor. He's in this special program. He's a gifted athlete, former teen model. Hello.
Right.
To Jessica, Marsalis seemed interesting, intelligent, clearly motivated, right? I mean, a fucking doctor, are you kidding me? That's a lot
Right.
of hours, etc. When they met for their first date, it seemed like they had a lot in common. And importantly, there was instant chemistry. She was attracted to him. All of this paved the way for their relationship to fast track to the serious part. They did not waste any time.
They jumped right on that
They
magic
jumped right
carpet.
into that. They jumped right on that magic carpet ride. And inside of 2 months, they went on a magic carpet ride vacation together to Bermuda. So they were like in it.
Are they lesbians? Because it sounds like this moved real quick.
What is it like? Dog years for every 1 year in human years, dog years is 7 years. What is it for
Yeah.
lesbians?
I mean, it's like a year equals a decade, probably.
Okay.
I don't know
Well,
the exact stats, but it's
9.2 years.
yeah, it's a lot.
Well, Jessica, she was on cloud nine. She's like, damn, I met this great guy. He seems amazing. Things started out with so much promise until Marcellus started disappearing for periods at a time, like just ghosting her for days and then coming back
Wow.
and acting like, what do you mean?
What's your
What,
problem?
what, what do you mean? I didn't text you for 3 to 5. What do you mean? In Jessica's words, in the Primetime Crime episode, side note, that's a
Mhm.
fantastic name. But the Primetime Crime episode that I stumbled upon that was like gold mine called The Strange Case of Dr. Jeff Marsalis. This episode aired on July 15th, 2009. And that's important because it was like in the middle of trials.
Oh, okay.
So it's a unique perspective. So, Primetime Crime episode, The Strange Case of Dr. Jeff Marsalis. If you're looking for some interesting television and like to throw shit at your TV because they interview Jeff Marsalis and he
Oh
is
God.
the worst,
Mm.
watch this episode. Anywhoozle, they interviewed Jessica Rovell, and she said things just started getting weird when he was just like MIA for like days on end. And she's like, "What the fuck? This is not normal."
Yeah.
Now, his explanation to her was that he was actually a covert CIA agent and that him being a doctor in residency was his official cover story. Okay. That was his explanation to her. And that all the times that he was gone and that he wasn't in contact with her, it was because he was on top secret missions and he couldn't contact her. And I literally wrote, insert a benefit of hindsight groan here. Because I say this now and we're all like, are you fucking kidding me? Well, as all fantastical as this sounds, she believed it at the time. Because unbeknownst to her, Marcellus had gone all out, making this seem believable,
Oh
feel
God.
believable. For one, he had a screensaver on his computer of the US seal. The CIA or the FBI, and there's that like
Mm.
seal with the
The eagle.
eagle emblem. Yeah, he had that on his computer. Now, what's interesting is that something as innocuous as a screensaver, like you're like, really a screensaver? But he didn't like call attention to it. He just left his computer out one day and like it had the screen. He didn't say anything about it and she noticed it. It's like something as innocuous as a screensaver can seem like a big, huge nail in the, oh, this must be true. Who would think of that?
Yeah. I just thought he was a patriotic doctor.
So he had this screensaver of the US seal on his computer, but he also had guns. Like he was
Oh.
just very open about his guns and his bulletproof vests. He had a biometric reader for his computer, which he said was required by the US government
Oh
because he
my
was a
God.
covert CIA agent. So he had to have his thumbprint to get into his computer. So he had the guns, he had the bulletproof vests, he had that biometric reader for his computer. He had all the peripherals you'd expect a CIA agent to have. So when he said this to her, she was like, "What?" And then she was like, "Oh wait, yeah, he's got the bulletproof vests and the guns and
Now it
the thing and
kind of
then the
makes
seal. And now it's
sense.
all making sense. Oh, okay."
Oy.
But as time went on, his stories continued to grow. Are you sitting down more than you already are?
I can try and recline. Do I need to
Maybe you
lean
should
on
recline for
something?
that. Yeah, recline for this one. Okay. He told Jessica that he flew Air Force One all the time. Oh, yeah, this was just a regular mode of transportation.
Cool.
His job as a CIA operative was he was an assassin. So he killed people all the time. All the time.
Whilst piloting.
No, he just rode on Air Force One. He didn't
Oh.
pilot Air Force One. Oh, I guess the way I said it.
It's like now he's a goddamn pilot.
Actually, he did in his profile. He had an air flight suit picture, and he stated that he was a naval pilot.
Oh
Yes, that is
God.
one
I
thing.
was like, this is getting out of control
Okay,
fast.
so now maybe the way I interpreted it from the research material was that he flew on Air Force One all the time, but maybe he told her
Oh.
he actually fucking flew the goddamn plane. I wouldn't be
I'm just
surprised.
I'm circling above the US always.
Always circular pattern, always.
Yeah.
And that he was an assassin. He just straight up killed people for a living. That's what he did as a covert CIA operative, but
I
he
got
wasn't
it.
supposed to tell her, so she had to keep it on the down low. He
Right?
he even told her that he was the lead interrogator for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so for those of you that aren't aware, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was part of Al Qaeda, and he was the mastermind behind September 11th. Um, get this. Even George W., who was in office at the time that this was all going down, thought Marsalis was so amazing. He wanted him to date one of his daughters.
Oh Lord. Lucky them.
George W. has two daughters, Jenna and Barbara. And I guess he didn't give a shit which one. He was just like, oh my God, you need to be my son in law. I don't care, whichever.
Hey man, just take one of the twins.
Let's get into some strategery on which one you're going to get in bed with, Jenna or Barbara.
Lauren, I don't care. Just take one of them. It's fine.
Anyway, he told Jessica all of this. Like, come on. And as time went on, their relationship quickly turned from like warm and lovely to toxic and unhealthy. Jessica said it went downhill fast when one time he picked a fight with her, and that fight ended with him physically choking her.
Oh, shit.
Right. So now we've moved from fantastical verbal stuff to straight up domestic violence, which I would argue that there was domestic violence before, but it was emotional and psychological.
Right. Yeah, it was manipulation and deceit.
Hmm.
There was a lot of other shit happening.
Hmm. Hmm. Yet she stayed. She stayed with him. She stayed with him because of fear. And when she tried to leave their relationship, she had tried to leave it a few times. Marsalis would threaten her. He would say, "If you leave me, I will fucking hurt your family. I will hurt your friends. I will find one of them and I will fucking hurt them. And you won't know when it's coming." So she had this like chain on her, she felt. Then he asked her to marry him. And she said yes.
Oh,
And she said
okay.
yes because she felt like she didn't have a choice not to say yes.
Right. She was worried about her family. Ugh,
Like
that
it or
sucks.
not, this is what domestic violence can look like, right?
Right. They keep you in the relationship based on fear.
Yep. And as time marched on and her fear took root, there was something nagging at her in the back of her mind, something that was beginning to push its way to the surface and not be ignored anymore. Something about a night she had spent with Marsalis very early on in their relationship. It was their second date. So they only known each other for like a matter of days. Because don't forget, this went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Right. Yeah.
And their second date, they had decided, you know what? Marsalis was going to go over to Jessica's apartment. They were going to order some Chinese takeaway. They were going to rent some films. They were just going to have a really romantic, nice, lovely evening in. How many of us have done this with somebody that we just met and that we're
Yeah.
dating and that we're keen on? We're attracted to,
Yeah.
there's chemistry, whatever. She opened a bottle of wine when he was there. So they enjoyed a bottle of wine between the two of them. Now, if you're not a dry person, meaning you don't drink, a bottle of wine shared between two people is not a lot of alcohol. That's not a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
She remembers kissing him in her kitchen this night. By this time, when they were kissing in her kitchen, they had finished the bottle of wine between the two of them. Her next recollection was of the next morning,
Oh,
waking
fuck.
up in her bed, completely naked, feeling like absolute fucking dog shit, having no idea how she got there, having no memory of having sex with Marsalis, but she absolutely knew for sure she had because she could feel it. Side note, women can feel when they've had sex the night before. Like, this is a thing. It was highly unusual that she would black out after having a couple of glasses of wine. And even more weird, Marsalis acted like nothing had happened. He acted like she had never blacked out. And she's like, I have no memory. Like straight up blackout. He acted like everything was just dandy, saying to her, "Oh my God, we had such fun last night. Oh my God, our night was so awesome. I loved it so much." Whatever. And he's saying all this stuff to her. And she's like, "What the fuck? This is so weird. I've never blacked out before." And she has never blacked out since. Eventually, Jessica hit rock bottom and she finally realized that she legitimately couldn't be in a relationship with Marsalis anymore. Her desire to be free finally overcame her fear of leaving him, which I think
Right.
is what happens a lot in domestic violence situations.
Mm-hmm.
She contacted the police. She was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to take steps. So the first step she did was she contacted the police and she put a restraining order in place against him.
Good.
Imagine this from her lens. She had made the tough decision to leave, despite the threats Marsalis had made against her, her family, and her friends. She did the right thing and she took steps to protect herself and her loved ones. She got that restraining order.
Mm-hmm.
She let the police know he was a dangerous man and she was scared. She blocked him from her phone, all social media at the time, which wasn't as prolific as it is today, but it was there. Access to her apartment because he knew where she lived. She no longer had any contact with him.
Good for her.
He was off on one of his CIA covert
Oh
missions,
my
so
god.
he was gone, and she put all this in place. Now she could breathe. She could move on. She could focus on putting herself and her life back together, focus on getting over this because it's traumatic.
Right, yeah.
And just as she was gaining momentum, thinking she'd never have to deal with or think about Marsalis again, one day, out of the blue, she gets a phone call and she's told, hey, you need to contact the Philadelphia Special Victims Unit because I think you're going to want to talk to them and I think they're going to want to talk to you. And she's like, holy shit. And it was from a trusted person. And so she called the Philadelphia SVU, Special Victims Unit.
Mhm.
And this is when she learned that all those times when Marsalis disappeared and told her he was working on covert CIA missions, he was actually spending time with other women. And now some of those women had come forward to the police and had accused Marsalis of drugging and raping them.
Oh my god.
And finally, Jessica had validation
Right.
that what she thought she had experienced on her second date with Marsalis wasn't actually a figment of her imagination, that
Mhm.
it was exactly what her gut told her. It was a date rape experience.
Damn.
So these women that had come forward to the police, they had recounted very similar experiences with Marsalis that Jessica had had. They all thought he was attractive, impressive, had his shit together. They all thought he was a catch. They met him usually at a bar or a restaurant over a drink to get to know each other. How many of us have done this? I can't even count how many times I've done this in my dating life.
Yeah.
You don't expect that your date is going to drug and rape you. You have just inherent trust in the dignity and self-worth of other humans, right? The
Right, for
dignity
sure.
and doing the right thing, I guess, is
Yeah, yeah.
the best way to describe it. To these women, Marsalis came across as charming, approachable, and more importantly, disarming. He would often pull out a medical ID. He would pull out a medical ID to prove that he really was a doctor, which in hindsight, they all admitted they thought was a bit weird and a bit like, okay, you're trying too hard. Like, who
Yeah,
fucking
like,
pulls out an
we got
ID?
it.
Like, no, for real, I'm a medical doctor. And they were just like, okay. But at the time when you're engrossed, it's really hard to, I mean, you might have this feeling like, okay, that's a bit much, but it's not going to be like, whoa, red flag, run, 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 run. It's not that.
Right.
He told some of them that he had been accepted by NASA to be the doctor on future space missions.
Oh my god.
But what
Wow.
really worked in Marsalis's favor with these different, intelligent, polished, articulate, really put together women is that he played the long con. He
Mm.
had the lingo, the dress, actions, behavior, all the corresponding, what I call proof points down pat. And he was believable. He was believable. He was believable because he was
Wow.
charismatic and affable.
Yeah, he played the game well. God
He
damn.
played the game well. Yes. Each of these women would remember leaving the bar and having no recollections of anything else until the next morning when they found themselves waking up naked in bed with Marsalis, not feeling good. And by not feeling good, meaning like they got sick often, confused as to where they were, but knowing they very clearly had had sex the night before. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but when women have sex with a penis, you can feel it the next day. Yet, as with Jessica, he was the perfect gentleman in the morning with all of these women. Perfect gentleman, acted like nothing had gone wrong. He was very, very good at convincing them that everything was fine. Nothing horrible had happened. What are you thinking? They had wanted to convince themselves that everything was fine. It was because of this phenomenon that none of these women went to the police at the time.
Mm.
None of them.
Damn.
And a couple of them went on to continue to date Marsalis for a while.
Really?
Yeah. The main reason why? They were trying to take back
Right.
control of their bodies, minds, the situation. They didn't want to admit to being victims. They didn't want to be a victim. They didn't want to admit that they had been traumatized by events that they knew that they had experienced. They just didn't want to admit it. And all these intelligent women were very good at rationalizing away Marsalis's behavior.
Mm.
Lieutenant Thomas McDevitt, at the time, ran the Philadelphia's Special Victims Unit. He recalled to the producers of the primetime crime episode how this case all began when one of Marsalis's ex-girlfriends showed up at the police station to file charges against Marsalis for date rape. That's how this
Oh,
all started, and that's how Lieutenant Thomas McDevitt got involved from the Philadelphia SVU. So authorities opened an investigation into her allegations, and they were able to obtain and execute a search warrant on the apartment that Marsalis was living in at the time in Philadelphia. And what they found changed their investigation from one woman to several women who were claiming that Marsalis did the same thing to them.
wow.
First, authorities learned that Marsalis was definitely not a doctor. Not shocking to us, but at the time, this was shocking to the women that he had fooled.
Right, for sure.
Instead, he was a nursing school dropout.
Oh,
He never worked at any hospitals in Philadelphia or anywhere else for that matter as a doctor, but brazenly, Marsalis would wear the white coat of a doctor, and then he would go into those hospitals acting as if he was a doctor. And even
yikes.
hospital staff didn't realize he was an imposter.
Oh, God, which is scary that somebody could just fucking do that.
I know. I,
Ugh.
I feel like Marsalis's balls have to be like super big ass brass balls to do something like that. I can't even lie to the insurance company about how many miles I have to drive to work. I can't. Like, I don't even know.
I bet he had little tiny raisin balls. Well, just little nothings because
Little
he's a
nothings.
little fucking weasel. He had weasel testicles. That's what it
You
was.
know what? That is a great word for him. He was a fucking weasel. Next, authorities found the guns, the bulletproof vests, the fake CIA documents that Marsalis had doctored.
Was the key to Air Force One in there too?
You're right. Wait, do planes have keys?
I don't fucking know. Probably not.
I could just say,
Boop boop.
seriously, do planes have push starts or do they have keys? I want to know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they found all of that stuff, the guns, the bulletproof vests, the fake CIA documents. They found photos of him in a pilot's uniform and helmet to support his claiming that he was a naval pilot. They also found photos of him in an astronaut suit because he had claimed that he was a NASA astronaut.
Oh my god. Did he just go to Party City and like
Well, they were like,
try on a bunch of shit?
hang on, hang on. How did this fucker like get into an astronaut suit? Because it's legit, like it looks like an ass. Like what they discovered was when you do a tourist tour at NASA, you can take a photo as a souvenir in a space
Oh my
uniform.
god.
I know. You
What
know
a
those orange like
yeah.
suit? Yeah, that's what that
Holding
was
like the
from.
helmet on your hip, like
That's exactly what it was.
we're
That's
getting ready to
exactly.
launch. Like, no,
We're
you're
gonna go
not.
in 3, 2, 1.
Fucking tool.
But the most damaging piece of evidence authorities found was on Marsalis's computer when they located a file that was titled, quote, "The Yearly Calendar of Woman."
Ah.
This file contained a list of different names of women. Lots and lots and lots of women. And the
Mm,
names were organized by year, and it captured all the women that Marsalis had had sexual contact with.
gross. Oh my god. This is
S-
awful.
So authorities set out to contact every single woman in that file.
Good. Good.
So while some said nothing nefarious or untoward had happened between them and Marsalis, many, many of the women that were contacted by authorities shared the now eerily similar story of that of Jessica Rovell and the other women
Oh,
that had
okay.
come forward.
Right.
And with
Yeah.
the police investigation uncovering Marsalis's lies, the pieces began to fall into place for many of these women as they started to work through that hazy, spotty, very, very vague, hard to remember details of that one night. I'm getting so angry of that one night they had had early on in their relationship with Marsalis.
Yeah. Oh my
Because if
god.
you black out, you can't really remember, but you got like an inkling before and you got like an inkling after, and a couple had an inkling in between, and it was like, oh
Yeah,
my
he was so
God.
sweet the next day, like
Hmm. Eventually, Lieutenant Thomas McDevitt had compiled enough evidence through his investigation to arrest Marsalis on rape charges.
yes.
Prosecutor Joe Kahn got to work putting together the case against Marsalis using the strikingly similar stories and experiences from victims that, one, didn't know each other, and two, who had all relayed their stories independently of each other to investigators. That was compelling evidence against Marsalis.
Yeah.
Marsalis' defense attorney, Kevin Hextall, knew he had a tough road too. Here were a handful of articulate, polished women accusing his client of rape, all with very similar stories. To add to that, Marsalis' credibility, shockingly, was super fucking sketch because he had all these false claims out there, being the head trauma surgeon at a Philadelphia hospital, an astronaut, a CIA operative. Unfortunately, Prosecutor Khan also had an uphill battle because there was no physical evidence.
Mm.
There was no circumstantial evidence. There was literally no evidence suggesting that Marcellus had done anything to these women.
Oh
It
my
was their word
god.
against his. None of them reported their alleged abuse to authorities. None of them had gone to the hospital requesting a rape kit. And many had continued to date him afterwards. So, as defense attorney Hextall and prosecutor Kahn were putting together their cases for and against Marsalis, respectively, three more women came forward and alleged that Marcellus had drugged and raped them too.
Wow.
Essentially, there was literally no physical or circumstantial evidence. So the entire case would come down to the credibility of the women. Basically, this was a glorified he said, she said.
Right. Mm.
Fortunately, this is where things go a bit sideways for the prosecution. One of the three additional women that came forward said in her sworn statement that after Marcellus had drugged and raped her on their third date, she had had no further contact with him. But when her phone records were examined, they showed that she had called Marcellus 24 times after that date,
Oh.
sometimes conversing for as long as 40 minutes.
Oh, fuck.
The other two women also had issues with their statements. One had helped Marsalis get an apartment in the very apartment building she lived in and was the apartment manager for.
Damn.
The other continued to have a consensual sexual relationship with him.
Oh shit. I'm not like
Oh, God,
victim
no.
shaming. It's
Actually,
just
we'll get into
unfortunate.
the psychology of this, but all of this obviously raised a troubling question. If Marcellus truly drugged and raped these women, okay, why
Mhm.
would they fucking continue to date and have sex with him? Believe it or not, it's difficult for most women, especially strong, independent, capable, polished women, to admit to themselves and own the fact that they were a victim of a sexual crime.
Right, for sure.
It represents that they let their guard down with the wrong person, that their character judgment was somehow flawed.
Yeah, that they're weak.
Mhm. Often, women will willingly and consensually continue a relationship with their perpetrator to regain control of the situation.
Mm. Yeah, it
It's
makes
easier for
sense.
women to believe they misperceived something than to accept that the world is a dangerous and unsafe place. That they could meet some guy who seemed affable, charming, disarming on Match.com, go out for a nice drink, and then be drugged and raped.
Right, and manipulated.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Sex crime experts say that it's much easier to deny that a sexual crime took place when the perpetrator is attractive, respectable, and acts like a gentleman after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like the Ted Bundy effect, you know?
Exactly. That's a perfect effect. Possibly more than all the internal reasons why a woman may not admit to herself that a sexual assault happened or even report it is because women that accuse another of sexual assault don't generally fare well in court.
Right.
Bottom line is, many just simply aren't believed.
Just so fucking frustrating and sad.
And we're going to talk more about that later too. According to an NBC News article written specifically about this case by Sabrina Rubin Erdely on November 21st, 2008, non stranger rape cases. which represent most of all reported rape cases in the United States, literally 75% plus of reported rape cases in the United States are non stranger rape cases.
Wow.
Juries are resistant to convict when the perpetrator is known by the victim. So, what message does that send? That sends, oh, if you were in a relationship with this person, or you had been friends with this person, or you went to school with this person, or whatever, they can't have raped you. You know them.
Right, or your spouse can't rape you. Your boyfriend can't rape you.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but if I had been married for 30 years to my husband and he forced me to have sex with him, that's fucking rape.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm getting hot. Erdely highlights a 4-year study across 8 states that the Research and Training Group End Violence Against Women International conducted. This study reported data regarding rape cases that landed on prosecuting attorneys' desks, meaning not only were these rapes reported, but they went to trial.
Okay.
Okay. This study reported that stranger rape cases have the best chances of conviction, with 68% of the cases ending in a guilty plea.
Wow.
I know that's pretty low still.
Yeah.
However, non stranger rape cases where a woman knows her attacker very briefly, we're talking less than 24 hours, which I argue you don't know somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. But less than 24 hours, the conviction rate drops from 68% for stranger to 43%.
Ugh.
If the woman knows her attacker longer than 24 hours, the conviction rate drops even further to 35%.
Fuck.
And we're sitting at a whopping 29% if the attacker was an intimate partner or an ex.
Wow.
So just a hair over quarter of all reported rape cases that went to trial, if the person was in a relationship with the abused
Or had been
or
previously.
had been previously. So we're 16 years on now from this study, and the numbers today honestly haven't really all improved that much. I can understand why victims don't report their abuse.
Yeah.
But there's also another thing. It's fucking embarrassing. It's embarrassing to think that you were fooled. It's embarrassing if you're a strong, independent woman. Even if you're not, it's embarrassing. You feel ashamed. You feel like I should have done something. I'm at fault for this too because I let it happen. That's not true, but that's how women think. Or,
Right.
or even men. Like men are victims of sexual assault as well. In
Mhm.
this case, we happen to be talking about women or anybody that identifies as women as the abused. But people that are abused sexually, they tend to blame themselves. And that's
Right.
another reason why they don't report it. They don't go to the hospital, insist on a rape kit, etc., etc.
Whenever they did the search of his house, did they find any sort of medication or anything that would have possibly been used to drug these women?
Yes, this is a great question. And the answer is yes. We'll get to that.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay.
Yes. So, another kick in the giblets is that at the time of Marsalis's trial, first trial in January 2006, the law in Pennsylvania prevented expert testimony from being used.
Okay.
This meant that the jury didn't hear about the psychological reasons why a victim might continue a relationship with her abuser. And as you can imagine, this fucking didn't help the prosecution.
Yeah. God damn.
After deliberation, the jury in this first trial came back with an acquittal of Marsalis on all charges.
What the fuck?
Mhm. Jessica Rovell and the other 3 unnamed women that pressed charges against Marsalis were in the courtroom when the actual acquittal verdict was delivered. Jessica said in her interview for that primetime crime episode that he, quote, he being Marsalis, quote, had this smile on his face, this horribly smug smile on his face when they announced the acquittal. And you can
Mm.
see like the disgust, like she was like becoming physically ill thinking back to that.
Right, yeah.
And just
For
like that,
fuck's sake.
Marsalis walked out of the courtroom a free man, vindicated on all charges.
And nobody clotheslined him or anything?
Well, authorities did, but not physically.
Oh, okay.
They had a surprise for him, and they arrested him as he was walking out of the courtroom. They arrested him
Nice.
again on new rape charges because more women had come forward. So during their ongoing investigation, again led by Lieutenant Thomas McDevitt, while Marsalis's trial was underway, three more women came forward and pressed charges against him, alleging that he drugged and raped them too, and they shared very similar stories. None of these women knew each other. They had no interaction, and they shared the very same stories as all these other women before that made that first trial happen.
Right.
All three had met Marsalis in 2004 the same way through the dating website Match.com.
Wow.
Side note, I met my husband on Match.com. I mean, I went on so many first and second dates before Sean and I met. It's scary. It's scary to think I could have been one of these women. I'm so
Right.
fucking thankful I wasn't, but Jesus. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God. You just truly don't know who's on the other side of the computer. You truly don't know. So, like I said, all three had met Marsalis in 2004 the same way using the online dating website Match.com. So, all of these names are fake names to protect their identities, just so we know. So, we've got Donna, who was 27 at the time, and she worked in marketing. We've got Rachel, who was 23 at the time, and she was in her graduate program for counseling. And then we have Natalie, who was 28 at the time. She was a scientific researcher, which, side note, that sounds pretty badass,
Right.
who was getting over a divorce. So all three of these women had met him the same way through Match.com. And investigators didn't stop there. Several more unnamed women came forward. A lot of these women wanted to protect their identity. They didn't want to be named, they didn't want to be interviewed because this is very emotional and traumatic. There's a lot of emotion here.
And I'm sure a lot of them have moved on to other relationships and don't want to involve family
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
their current partners.
And they want to forget about it and they want to just move on. I get
Exactly.
it. I get it. So again, this first trial ended in acquittal on all charges. He was walking out. Investigators arrest him again. Only this time he wasn't locked up long because he posted bail soon after he was arrested. And he ended up moving from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Sun Valley, Idaho.
Okay.
Sun Valley, Idaho is where his family had land. They had property there.
Okay.
And so he had been there many, many times when he was growing up. So Sun Valley, Idaho was very familiar to him. It was a safe space. And he found an apartment and he got a job in security
Oh God.
working for the Sun Valley Resort, which fucking astounds me. Like, I guess no background checks there.
Apparently not. He's good looking. He'll work.
Yes, exactly. And many of the employees that worked at the resort stayed in dorm rooms on site. And
Wow.
Masalis, who was a security guard, had master keys to every single room, every single door at this resort. It just fucking blows my mind. So him moving from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Sun Valley, Idaho, because he was able to post bond would prove to be super fucking unfortunate. Because then there was 21-year-old Jody. Again, name changed to protect her identity. And Jody contends that she would never have had consensual sex with Marsalis because Jody was not attracted to men.
Oh,
Jody
okay.
was attracted to women. And this is where you, James, are going to get real fucking pissed.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Okay.
Side note, I'm a lesbian.
Jody moved to Sun Valley, Idaho, to be closer to her sister. Her sister lived there. Her sister also worked for Sun Valley Resort. Jody also was able to get a job at Sun Valley Resort. Marsalis worked as a security guard at Sun Valley Resort. Jody's sister introduced her to Marsalis because she thought he was a really cool guy. And her sister was new to the area. Jody, being new to the area,
Mm-hmm.
Jody's sister wanted her to sort of acclimate. And so she was introducing her to people. So they became friendly, they being Jody and Marsalis.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, like one Saturday, they were like, Marsalis was like, hey, Jody, you want to go grab a drink? Jody was like, sure, that'd be cool. I don't really know anybody here. She says that, they're at this bar and she's like, for her, it wasn't a date because she was a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
But Marsalis didn't know that. And so she was like, yeah, he was kind of looking at me. And so I just looked at him and I just said outright, quote, I'm wondering how I'm going to tell you that I'm a lesbian. And she said he responded with, like, "That's cool. I've got a lot of gay friends in Philadelphia, so that's cool." And she was like, "Okay, this is out. We're just friends. We're having a good time. So everything's cool. They're just new friends hanging out."
No skin off my weasel balls.
Yeah, no skin off his weasel balls. But he bought Jody a kamikaze shot, and Jody did the shot, and she's like, "Whoa, that tasted fucking weird. I can't describe how it tasted, but not like any kamikaze shot I had." And also, side note, what is this substance at the bottom of my drink?
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Remember your question earlier? We're getting to it. So
Yes.
she's like, "What the fuck is this?" The last thing Jody remembers is heading outside to smoke a cigarette. Her next memory is the next morning.
God damn.
She's coming to, she's on a bare mattress, which fucking grosses me out.
Me too.
She said, the first thing I said was, "Where's the restroom? Because I'm going to vomit." Because she felt like fucking shit. She knew they had had sex because, again, you can feel it. She knew that they had sex. And more proof was that her clothing had been like rearranged. Like she had her clothing on, but it was not the same. Like her belt wasn't the same. Her shirt was on backwards. Like it was clearly taken off and put back on again.
Right.
Mhm, mhm.
Uh,
She was like, "What in the actual fuck happened last night? There's no goddamn way I would have voluntarily had sex with this guy."
yeah.
And Marsalis, what did he do? He acted like nothing happened.
Of
Jody
course.
recounted in this primetime crime episode that he like put his arm around her and was like, "My little gay buddy, we'll have to hang out again sometime."
Oh my god.
Isn't that super skeevy?
Yes. Everything about
So Jody
yeah.
did something different than all the other women. She called the police that morning and she reported what had happened to her. And she went to the hospital and insisted a rape kit be done.
Atta girl.
And this rape kit proved intercourse had indeed occurred. They had sperm. Boom. She was telling the truth.
Nice.
And she's like, "Side note, I'm not into dick. So not cool."
Not a big fan of dicks.
Okay, meanwhile, don't forget, Marsalis was arrested on new rape charges after his first trial. So prosecutor Khan was at work in Philadelphia, busy putting together another rape trial to try and convict Marsalis and get him behind bars, right? Don't forget, he's out. Marsalis is out on bond. He fled to Sun Valley, Idaho. Prosecutor Khan working on second trial in Philadelphia.
Which was it allowed for him to go to another state whilst
Apparently,
awaiting trial? Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that was allowed, but okay.
So prosecutor Khan is working, boop, 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 and he learns about Jody's police report and rape kit in Sun Valley, Idaho, which naturally he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And also, ooh, maybe this will help the case.
Yeah.
Hextall, Marsalis's defense attorney, also learned about Jody and was like, by his own admission, really fucking surprised and was like, "Fuck, well,
Yeah.
that's not good." For Marsalis's second trial, prosecutor Khan was very intentional about the women that he put on the stand. Ultimately, he decided on 7 women that had come forward, 7 of the women that came forward, I should say, that he would put on the stand to testify against Marsalis.
Okay.
These women, through sworn statements, alleged that after Marsalis had drugged and raped them, they had had no further sexual contact with him.
Okay.
Alongside this, and this is getting back to what you asked earlier, Lieutenant
Mhm.
Thomas McDevitt and his team discovered evidence in Marsalis's old EMT bag. So he had like this old bag that like lots of EMTs carry when they go on calls.
Yeah.
They found a syringe in this bag containing a liquid substance. And so they sent it to the lab for analysis.
Uh-huh.
And the lab tests showed that this substance was liquid Benadryl.
Oh,
Liquid
shit.
Benadryl is apparently odorless, colorless, and will knock you the fuck out.
Wow.
And authorities believed that this was how Marsalis incapacitated his victims and why they had no recollections of their assaults.
Wow.
But just like in the first trial, it came out that none of these women went to the emergency room the next day requesting a rape kit to be done. None of these women went to the police and reported their suspected abuse. None of them came forward until investigators started hunting for potential victims of Marsalis. And even more damaging, even though all 7 women had sworn that they had had no further sexual contact with Marsalis after he allegedly drugged and raped them,
Mhm.
all of them, all 7 of them, still had contact with him in general afterwards.
Hmm.
The defense countered that none of these women thought they were drugged and raped by Marsalis until the authorities and the prosecution suggested that they had been raped and drugged.
Oof, yeah.
The clincher was that Prosecutor Khan was not allowed to present Jody's case in Marsalis' second trial in Philadelphia. It was against the law.
Okay.
In June of 2007, after deliberating for 5 fucking days, the
5
jury
days.
came back with the acquittals on all rape charges.
Oh my god.
They did, however, find him guilty on 2 counts of the lesser charge of sexual assault, which the jury sentenced him to 10 to 21 years in prison
Okay.
for that.
It's a start.
Donna, Rachel, and Natalie, along with the other unnamed women in the second trial, were fucking devastated.
I'm sure.
But they all were anticipating that Idaho trial as another chance to get Marsalis behind bars. Idaho prosecutor Jim Thomas presided over the third trial against Marsalis, who was 35 by this time, in April of 2009.
Okay.
So this has been going on for like 3.5 years. And prosecutor Thomas, he was really liking his chances of a conviction, even though by law, he was not allowed to present any of the stuff from the previous 2 trials in Philadelphia.
Mm.
Jody and her sister both testified against Marsalis in this trial. Marsalis' defense attorney, Doug Nelson, focused in on the fact that when Jody went to the hospital, no drugs showed up in her system. He focused in on the fact that and exploited that they were drinking at the bar and suggested she drink so much. She simply was so drunk she just didn't remember voluntarily having sex with Marsalis. But the taxi driver that drove Marsalis and Jody back to the resort testified on behalf of the prosecution. So she's in this primetime crime episode. It was super eerie listening to her describe how she saw Marsalis dragging Jody away from the car and said that Jody's toes pointed backwards. He was literally dragging her. She was not walking of her own volition.
Wow.
Super fucking eerie.
That is horrifying.
Marsalis never took the stand in his own defense. The jury also heard the videotaped interview that an Idaho detective had with Marsalis about this. And you can hear Marsalis' story changing when the detective shared with him that Jody went to the hospital and she had had a rape kit done and that there was the presence of sperm and that a DNA test was going to be performed on it. And now you hear him say, I can neither confirm nor deny. It was super sketch. So in this primetime crime episode, the producers and the show hosts, they talked with Marsalis like in between his trials and during his trials. And the show host asked him if he had date raped any of the women that had accused him. He like straight out said, "Did you ever date rape any of these women that accused you?" And Marsalis said, quote, I'm sorry. Marsalis said, quote, "Let me make something very, very clear to you. I have never drugged anybody. I have never raped anybody. I have never forced myself on anybody, ever." When the show host asked Marsalis, "Who are you?" he responded with, quote, "You know, I'm the guy all the girls keep hanging out with. The guy with the great personality. That's who I am."
Oh my god. Ick.
When the show host asked if he had lied in any way on his Match.com profile, astronaut, doctor, Marsalis responded with, quote, "I'd have to say that there were some discrepancies."
Yep, yep, yep. Oh my
And then
god.
he reiterated that he was, quote, the caring, the loving, the nurturing, the easygoing, the great guy.
Oh, gag.
It's super gaggy.
He's so gross.
He is so gross. So, in this third trial, the jury took 3.5 hours to reach a verdict. And after 3.5 years and almost 2 dozen women coming forward, so there were 21 women that came forward and accused him of raping and drugging them.
Wow.
21 fucking women.
Jesus.
Marsalis was found guilty of raping Jody.
Yes. I mean, no, not yes that he raped her. Yes, that he was
No,
finally
totally. Like, yes,
fucking
finally.
charged, or not charged, but convicted. Oh my god.
He got life in prison and he's eligible for parole in 2031. So remember, this was in April of 2009. So we got life in prison with eligibility for parole in 2031, which is 7 years from now. It seems super close.
I
Like, ooh.
know. I don't like it.
He is required, though, to serve his Pennsylvania and Idaho prison sentences consecutively. So don't forget, in the second trial, he was acquitted on all rape charges, but he was charged with 2 counts of the lesser charge of sexual assault.
Okay.
And for that, he was sentenced to 10 to 21 years in prison, right?
Okay.
Then in Idaho, his third trial, he was convicted of rape for Jody. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of, I think it was like, I don't know, however many years from 2009 to 2031, where he could first apply for parole.
Okay.
However, he has to serve Pennsylvania and Idaho prison sentences consecutively, which means when he's done with Pennsylvania, he then has to go to Idaho
Okay.
and
Good.
serve.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, according to an article written by Shraman Mitra for the Cinemaholic, I love the Cinemaholic, on August 30th, 2022, Marsalis tried to get his Pennsylvania conviction overturned in 2020 because he was still serving it and he was trying to get it overturned by claiming he was, one, not even in the state when one of his accusers claimed he raped her, and then two, that he had ineffective counsel.
Of course.
This was for the Idaho trial, the third trial.
Okay.
A judge hearing his case rejected his reasoning and was like,
Good.
no. So he rejected all of that. Right now, Marsalis is currently serving his Pennsylvania prison sentence at the SCI Forest Prison in Marionville, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then he'll be required to report to Idaho to serve a sentence of at least 15 years there once
Nice.
he's released, if ever, from the SCI Forest Prison
Okay.
in
And
Pennsylvania.
then can he be banned from Match.com for life?
Right? I don't know. I would think so. But it's so goddamn sad. And it makes me so goddamn mad that most females and some men, to be perfectly honest, have to live their lives being constantly vigilant. Like,
Hmm.
I travel regularly, as you know. I spend a lot of times in airports, on planes, and you'd think, okay, well, airports, planes, those are pretty safe, right? We've got all these safety measures in place here in the United States, and I'm sure for the most part they are. But it's been driven into our being females very DNA that it doesn't matter how safe our environment is. We
Okay.
have to remain vigilant no matter how safe we feel. In fact, the more safe you feel, the more you need to be vigilant.
Exactly.
Example, I love noise canceling headphones, but I won't travel with them
Hmm.
because the very thing that they're designed to do is drown out your environment. And as a female, I have to always be aware of my environment. Like it makes me very uncomfortable to be
Right.
sitting in an airport, even in like one of the airline's clubs, for God's sakes,
Right.
with noise canceling headphones on. It just makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. It makes you more vulnerable than you already are just as a female in general.
Exactly. But it's all about balance. So during my research on this case, I stumbled upon a really great news article written by Christine Flowers for the Philadelphia Daily News. She published this article in June of 2007, and it was specifically on and about and related to the Marsalis case.
Okay.
The article is titled, quote, "The Politics of Rape, Part 2." And in this article, Flowers discusses the pendulum between protecting the victim and protecting the accused.
Mm.
It's a great article. There is a particular passage Flowers wrote that I wanted to share.
Okay.
She writes, quote, "All of that caused me to reflect on how rape is treated today." And what she means by all of that is how the jury in the Marsalis's first and second trials acquitted him because the prosecution had failed to prove consent,
Right.
which is a critical element. So all of that caused me to reflect on how rape is treated today. So this is from Christine Flowers. "It used to be that women who cried rape were all too often disbelieved or silenced. Many states had laws that made it impossible for a husband to rape his wife since consent was presumed. In other cases, a woman's past sexual history was used to destroy her credibility.
Mm.
That was wrong. That was then. But now, the pendulum has swung in the opposite direction. Today, if a woman makes a rape accusation, the presumption is she wouldn't have brought charges if the accusation weren't true. And that's just as bad as the days when women were reflexively labeled liars. As a woman, I'm grateful for the fact that the law is designed to protect me from abuse. Grateful we have a special visa for battered women and that we're passing laws named for Jessica and Megan to insulate children from harm. A society that views rape as violence and not sex is a society that puts a premium on human dignity. But there's still that troublesome pendulum trying to sweep reasonable doubt out the window."
Mm.
And
Right.
I was really taken
Wow.
by her words and her perspective. And as a woman, like, I get it. We have terrible women out there that will accuse for the sake of getting back, and it's completely false.
Right.
And we have women out there that have truly been abused,
For
who
sure.
speak up and then they're not believed. And it's a very delicate, fine line.
Hmm.
So that really resonated with me and I wanted to share.
And like, so the one thing that I wanted to point out about this case that like makes it extra infuriating is that this motherfucker who puts in so much time and effort wooing women, knowing that he is going to violate them, and can wake up next to them the next morning and make them think they're stupid. You know, that they just don't remember what a fantastic, lovely, romantic evening that they had. And then he just continues to play it off. That is a whole other level of just scumbag piece of shit that I can't even wrap my head around, because I think a lot of rape is very impulsive, and you don't there's not a lot of thought that goes into it. It's just an impulse. And that's not okay. I'm not condoning that. But the fact that he put so much just effort and did this over and over and over is so fucking disgusting.
It's psychological warfare.
Yes. Just the icky factor is like through the fucking roof for me right now.
And I imagine that depending on your experiences, you'll relate and react to this case differently, right? So we've got men, women, however you identify. If you've been firsthand affected by sexual abuse, you're going to relate to this case differently than someone who loves someone that's been affected by sexual abuse
Mhm.
versus someone that doesn't really have that in their sphere of life, but they're passionately advocating for sexual abuse victims. Like everybody
Right.
has their own lens, their own experience, etc. And either way, forcing someone to do sexual things without their consent, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
The case with Jody in particular resonates with me because as a gay female who has never slept with a man, and I have never had that desire, and I doubt it'll just pop up in my 60s, but if I were to ever be sexually assaulted, I know that I'm one of the very fortunate people that has not dealt with that. But to know that me saying I would never sleep with a man, there is no way that it was consensual, that just my word isn't good enough.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it does become, well, you don't remember, so you must have just wanted to try out some dick for the night. It's like, no, no, no.
That's not how it works.
To have my word and my character and my just everything in my core questioned as a victim, I cannot even imagine. I mean, and it just goes to show why so many women are scared to come forward.
Yeah.
There are the women who are violated and have the courage to pick up the phone or go to a police station, contact authorities, go to a hospital, and after being violated, have other strangers have to go in and take samples of the violation that they've already had. Nobody likes going to the gynecologist. No woman likes being in that position where you have strange people
It's
all up
just
in it. And
it's
so
so yeah.
for a female to have been violated and then have the courage and the strength to go and do that in an attempt to get whoever hurt her, arrested, prosecuted, whatever it might be. After all of that, to have them not be believed or questioned or have to watch her assailant get acquitted, fuck that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if nothing else, I want to say kudos to those women who have come forward, and I totally understand to the women who haven't wanted to. It makes total fucking sense to me. I hate it.
I can't blame them. I can't
And
blame them.
to anyone who is raising a child, please, please enforce the importance of consent and respect.
Mhm. No one has a right to lay a hand on you physically unless you are okay with it. No one. Anyway, so that is the case of Jeffrey Marsalis, who is probably one of the more prolific serial rapists in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. Thank God for Jody,
Exactly.
who was able to and what's really cool is that Donna, Natalie, Rachel, Jessica, Jody, they all met each other through this. They all have kind of like a bond, and they're all so thankful. And Jessica, she really struggles with the fact that she didn't come forward when she suspected and like was like, "What the fuck?" This thing nagging in the back of her head. She feels like if she had, maybe she could have protected Donna and Rachel and Natalie. And
Mm,
they were like, "It's not your fault. You can't control the action of others.
right.
This is Jeffrey Marsalis's fault. He's responsible for his behavior and actions." And it doesn't change the fact that she still feels a level of guilt.
He designed it specifically so that they would question themselves and that they wouldn't
Absolutely.
have any sort of proof that he did anything wrong.
Mhm.
That sneaky motherfucker just had like that,
Psychological warfare.
and it worked for way too goddamn long.
Yep.
I am pumped up.
I know. That's why I was
Not in
like,
a good way.
last episode was really tough emotionally. This one was really tough from a psychological perspective, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, we are officially on YouTube now.
Yeah. So Google Podcasts actually switched to YouTube Music.
Mhm.
So the podcast is on there. And then we also are on just YouTube. Wherever you guys listen, if it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, now YouTube.
Amazon Music.
Yeah,
Rate, review, subscribe.
because the ratings and positive reviews are what are going to get other people to listen to the show. And if you can
Yeah.
share it with people that you know that like true crime, that's the best way to grow this show and for us to be able to keep doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you guys for listening and for supporting us. If you have any case suggestions or comments, questions, anything at all,
Feedback.
email us at crimehotelpod@gmail.com.
That rolls off the tongue. I like that.
I know.
Gmail.com.
Pew pew.
Yeah. And on that note, goodbye, Jamie.
Goodbye, Carrie.
I almost threw this goddamn laptop through the goddamn window.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god, I love it.
I trust you. It's weird.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm taking the Air Force One to the moon.
Nothing better than a finger pistol.
Oh, fuck yeah.
You're really fucking stressed right now. Whatever it is you're doing, you should stop doing it.
I'm sorry. Get in here.
I have to pee. I'll be right back.
Good to know.